Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Hello. Hello, I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and I have a very, very special guest today. His name is Steve Archer, and he's executive director of the St. Sabina Chicken Palace, and that's located at 7840 South Racine. Steve, welcome to On the Case.
Thank you very much, Chinta.
And you actually, okay, first of all, tell us a little about you. Where were you born, and how did you get into the chicken business?
All right. So I'm a South Sider. I got a South Side, right? I grew up on the South Side, just a little bit outside of Jeffrey Manor. So about 102nd and Hoxie over by Torrance Avenue. Whew. So as a child growing up, I heard stories about my dad who used to go to Michigan to spend time at his uncle's farm. And he always gets upset when I tell this story, but him and his older brother were trying to teach the chickens how to swim, and chickens cannot swim. And so when they were trying to teach the second chicken how to swim, the first one didn't make it. They got in a lot of trouble. But that was like the stories that he would tell about being on the farm. And you were telling me a story earlier about the pig that lived with you.
Yes.
And my father, they had a big sow, and she had babies, and my father was going in with the sow that he used to go in with all the time. And my uncle snatched him out and said, "Boy, that pig will kill you because her baby's in there. She don't trust you with her babies." And so all of my young life, I've been hearing these stories, but there was no farm left by the time I was a young man to go and visit. So I had to make my own. I had to find my own way. And while I haven't owned pigs yet, we did babysit some goats. And I found that chickens are a great thing to take care of. I was suffering from PTSD after my time in the military. And my doctor said, "You got to take care of something. Otherwise, you're probably not going to make it." And though we had a family and kids, when they're off at school or they're somewhere else, and I was recovering from an injury, I needed something to focus on. And that was the first time we had chickens. I think it was 2008. And now we have chickens over at St. Sabina, at Stein Learning Garden, and we are teaching people how to produce their own food. It's very important.
It is important. Now, you were in the Navy? And
I was in the Marine Corps.
Marines, yes.
Yes. And some of the people in the Navy will tell you that the Marine Corps is a branch of the Navy, and it's true. We are a branch of the Navy. So, but I was in the Marine Corps from 1999 to 2004, and I got to go some places that I wanted to go and some places that I didn't want to go. So I got to spend some time in Iraq, and that was not Iraq and right outside of Kuwait. It was not as fun as you might think.
Which conflict was that?
That was OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And so we were part of what they call the frog hopping campaign, which shows how mature some of our seniors were, because none of the young people that were in the military knew what frog hopping was. They didn't know that game, but it wasn't truly frog hopping, because what would happen was we would go forward and set up the temporary camp, and then the officers would catch up to us. And instead of them going forward, we would go forward again, and then they catch up to us. And so it was not the best situation. I don't think that we as military members all understood the reason we were there, nor did the Iraqis understand the reason we were there after Saddam was captured.
Right, right. We just had someone from the Higher Learning TV show, and they said, "Well, so happy to see this ministry helping our unhoused neighbors as we continue our weekly food deliveries. Keep us up, keep up the good job. I'm
Thank
sorry, keep up the good work." So, all right. So now, when did you start the Chicken Palace, and why did you call it the Chicken Palace? The Saint
you.
Sabina Chicken
Yeah.
Palace.
Okay, so we had a small when I first got here at Saint Sabina, we had a small chicken coop, and I used to joke, having spent some of my lifetime on the west side of Chicago, in 1239. If anybody know where Holy Family Church is on Roosevelt and May, lots of family lived over there in the row houses, 1239, 1111, those old buildings that actually they showed pictures of in good times. So what you see pictured here is the Jeffersons. What we had before was a small chicken coop, and they needed a bigger one. So we did a fundraiser to raise some money, and we took some money from Father Flager to help purchase the Chicken Palace. So we went from good times to the Jeffersons. They have a much nicer home now. It's got a tin roof, and they have roosting spaces inside. You can open up the back to get to the eggs. And there is a black family who down in Missouri, their business is called um, Classic Creations, and they build these chicken coops and then they deliver them all across the country. The husband does the building, the wife does the business when she's not working her second job. And I just thought that it would be a beautiful thing if we could help our community by, even though they're down in Missouri, we could help our community by spending with them instead of going to Timu and trying to buy something to put together. We raised the money to do this, and we continue to use some eggs from Archer Urban Farms Initiative to continue to support that mission.
And
So
so,
that's how we got the palace. We did a naming uh, campaign, and I wanted Chicken Coliseum because I'm an English major and I like alliteration, but Chicken Palace won out. I think one of my employees put her thumb on the scale, though, to be honest.
well, I like the Chicken Palace myself. So do you sell the eggs?
So we sell the eggs at cost, as close to cost as possible, so that we can raise the money to continue to feed them. Part of where we're asking for funds for continuing to feed them is that we don't use lights. You can use lights to make your chickens continue to lay, and basically it means they don't get a break. And I think my ladies work really hard, and they deserve a break over winter. So when we get less sunlight during the winter time,
Mhm.
the chickens lay fewer eggs. So that picture is especial. He was a gift from our neighbors. As you can see, his tail has that rooster tail effect. That was why when you drove through the water and the water spun up like that, they called it a rooster tail, because the roosters have that tail. And what you can't see in the picture of a special there, but you can see in these feathers from a rooster, is the iridescence that's in there. And we don't really know if that iridescence is so that the other chicks, the hens, will like him a little bit more.
Mhm.
But if we looked at it under a black light, we'd see much more of the rainbow colors that are in that tail, in those tail feathers.
Okay, and some of the chickens, they look the female chickens. And by the way, how do you know the gender of a chicken of a chick?
Okay. So when they're babies, there's this. So yes, that. So when they're babies, they're really fluffy, so they don't have their feathers in yet, and so that's the down part of the chicken. And some of the moms will make down. They'll pull out downy feathers to help build their nest. When they're very tiny, you could take the first and the third toe, and if they're the same length, that means it's more likely to be a female. If the third and first toe are not the same length, then it's more likely to be a male. We did that experiment. We looked at the chicken's toes, and it was probably about 90% effective, because some their toes are just one's just a little bit taller, but when they're like this, that much difference, then it's much easier to tell. Other than that, you have to wait. And sometimes because genetics, sometimes their rooster tail doesn't come in early enough, but all of a sudden you'll hear that bird cock-a-doodle-doo, and that is the true test to see if they're male or female. That and the males have a spur that comes out the back of their shin, and that spur they use to protect the flock. The rooster is important in the flock because they're the birds that stand guard. So they're trying to protect their harem, so to speak, right? They're standing guard, and they're one of the few birds that look up for aerial predators.
Yeah, well, they're also the birds that wake me up when I was a little girl, 4 o'clock in the morning on our farm in
Yeah,
Michigan, and
yeah,
because we had to go to the orchards to pick fruit, which
yeah.
I was very proud to do. And but every morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, what's up with that?
Yes. So the roosters are just like the robins and the cardinals. They're just greeting the morning. But there's a myth that roosters only crow in the morning. The rooster will crow whenever he darn well pleases. And sometimes it's to let the farmer know that there's something attacking or sniffing around. So a lot of times if you hear your rooster crowing at nighttime, it's to warn everybody in the coop that there's something that might be dangerous. So if you hear your rooster crowing at night, it's one of two things: one of your neighbors going in there to get them a chicken dinner, or something, or something else. So they generally only crow when it's not light, if there's danger. Otherwise, they will crow to greet the dawn, or just to let everybody know how wonderful they are.
Or to get on my nerve.
Yeah.
It's
I
4 o'clock in the morning.
think
That's
that's
something
also
else. But now you have different colored eggs. How come?
true. So human oh, that wonderful, right? Some of the eggs there are really dark brown. Those are chocolate eggs. The brown eggs come from several different types of bird. The white eggs come from leghorns and a couple other mixed breeds that are mixed with leghorns, like foghorn leghorn from the Warner Brothers. The green eggs, the greenish blue eggs, and the jade eggs are special because they're mixed breeds, and now they're their own breed, and they're called Americana. The breed that they're mixed with are the European chickens and the South American chickens, which were called Oricana. And the Oricana laid blue eggs because of a retrovirus that they got millennia ago, and that changed the color of the eggs. As far as I'm aware, there might be somebody that's claiming something somewhere. There is no genetic benefit for having blue eggs. So human beings decided that they wanted different color eggs. And so they bred those chickens that way. Now, one of the reasons that I like the different color eggs is because it shows their genetics. When you have white eggs, and they come from a leghorn, or one of the other breeds that lay white eggs, it's generally those breeds are rather inbred. And on average, the large chicken farmers, their birds are on average 12% inbred. The chicks that we're raising, we don't care what color the eggs are. What we're most interested in is the diversity. So when I walk into a classroom and I go, "Oh, kids," for the first time, I say, let's take a look at these eggs. And I pop open the eggs and they go, "Wait, why is that egg blue? Why is that egg green? What?" Right? Why is that egg so dark? And I tell them it's because that's the genetics from their mama, right? And so when we switch up our chickens, right, the most successful places in the world, the rainforest, some of the old growth forests, they're successful because of diversity. So when I remind these students that the best case scenario for our birds to be the healthiest they could possibly be is that they have genetic diversity. If they don't have genetic diversity, one disease can wipe them all out. One illness can wipe them all out because they'll have no natural protections against it. And if they share a 12%, if they share 12% of their heredity, if it targets that 12%, then they're done. And so there are chickens that survive the chicken flu. There are pigs that survive the swine flu, just like there were human beings that survived the Spanish flu from 1918, even though it didn't really come from Spain.
Well, so DEI is important to raising chickens.
To raising anything, and save your seeds and get you a rooster and raise your chickens, because in the city of Chicago, you can have roosters. So,
and we're going to talk about that. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Thank you.
In which we're doing this documentary for Douglas Robinson, Your Death Will Not Be in Vain.
He was a heck of a great dude. And I love Doug. Doug loved me.
Just being around him, he had a good spirit. He was a healing person.
They are there.
Get SROs back.
When you give to the poor,
should not be forced out of their neighborhoods when it goes through a period of transformation.
Because there are too many people who are losing their homes to taxes because they can't pay a $1,000 tax bill.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and our special guest is Steve Archer, and he's executive director of the St. Sabina Chicken Palace, 7840 South Racine. So, how do you help the poor people in the community?
Okay, watching that video reminds me. Watching that video reminds me of something that I tell people about our mission at Stein Learning Garden. And that is reminding people that there's no such thing as a food desert, right? Deserts are naturally occurring. And what we have happening in these communities, in our communities, is divestment. And divestment to a particular section of people, whether it's socioeconomic or racial, is divestment. And that is apartheid. All right. So what we're experiencing is not a food desert, but food apartheid. And the only way to combat food apartheid is through food sovereignty. So we have to produce our own food. We have to learn how to save our own food. We have to learn how to care for the chickens and the pigs and the goats and the sheep. Grocery stores are less than 100 years old. So we often get food donated to us, and we take that food down to the social services right down 79th and
1120 West 79th Street.
Yes. And when they don't have enough space there, and on some Wednesdays in the summer when we have our storage here on site, because right now we're on at the hub. That's where we do our winter farmers market. But when we're on location here at 7840 South Racine, then we have more storage space. And on those days, we have the items that we've grown and that we need to make a little bit from so that we can buy more seeds, we can produce more, we need more compost and so forth. Although we're doing our own compost now, we're trying to show people how to get out of that system. We then have sections in our little farmers market where people can take what they need, and that is what we want to emphasize, is that take what you need, take what you can use, because sometimes we'll have people, they'll grab a green squash and they were like, oh, I need cucumbers. It's like, that's not a cucumber, but I can tell you how to cook it. We don't want you to waste food. We want you to take what you need. We need you to stop having a scarcity mindset where you try to take all of everything, even though you're not going to be able to use it. And if you can't use it, then it ends up in the trash. And so we definitely don't want our things ending up in the trash. Thank you. We don't want the things ending up in the trash. And we want to educate people about how to grow, because once they start growing on their own, sometimes they're like, what am I going to do with all these tomatoes? What am I going to do with all these cucumbers? You say, you need a neighbor that grows lettuce so you guys can make a salad. Right? This is what we need, is to go back to a time, and there's some countries that still do it. It's not socialism to care for people in need, right? That's human. It's humanism. It's the right thing to do. And
Absolutely.
so if we can grow stuff, if we can teach people how to grow stuff, if we can just show people the way, and part of that sometimes is just showing up and learning. And so we do the best we can. We work with Chicago Grows Food. We work with Black on Black Love Community Garden. We work with the Gaia movement and several other places, Eden Place Farms. And we do our best to make sure that we're building a community where we can call on each other for the things that we need. And we don't have to go back into the federal government when food is unavailable.
That is awesome. But you can also have chickens in your backyard in Chicago. I did not know that.
Yes. So the city of Chicago was well known for, oh my goodness, now I can't remember the name of the book because it just went out of my yard, the out of my head. The Stockyards, the book about the stockyards. Oh, I can't remember.
The Jungle?
Yes, I believe it was The Jungle. And it was about the stockyards. Well, all of those laws are mostly still on the books. So you can have backyard hens, you can have roosters, you can have sheep. There are people in the city of Chicago who have horses, and there was an alderman, and
Alderman Nateris.
Was he the one that was trying to say that people shouldn't have horses in their backyard?
Well, he was the one who ended the horses in the loop, which made me very unhappy. He was one of my favorite aldermen too.
Oh, yeah, no. There's a new one. This one is current. But my father told me stories about how they used to go and get horse manure, and then they would put it in the yards in the wintertime so that in the spring, when they planted everything, that compost, that manure would revitalize their soil. Mm-hmm. And now we don't have access. We can't walk down the street and get some horse manure. So
you know what? My grandfather had 8 businesses, and one of them was a grocery store. But he also wasn't too proud enough to collect horse manure. And at first I thought it was a shame, but he told me what he did with it, and it's very important to the ecological system.
Absolutely. Well, and that's part of it, is we want people to have the whole cycle of gardening. We want permaculture, permanent agriculture. So if you plant your asparagus in a section in your backyard and you weed it every spring and you tend it, that asparagus crown will produce asparagus for 20 years.
Wow.
If you plant a service berry, also known as a Juneberry or Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
Those will grow as a tree and produce food for you. And they taste like, to me, they taste like cherries and blueberries had a baby, right? You can grow that in your front yard. If you want to make medicine, you don't have to go to Whole Foods and buy elderberry syrup. Elderberry grows like a weed. The only problem is fighting. You can't see in the background of that picture, but in the background of that picture, that's a early spring picture, is one of my elderberry bushes at my farm on Perry. And you get bunches of elderberries this big. And I don't mind if the birds get them, the berries, because the berries have seeds and the birds are going to spread the berries faster than I can give people new elderberry plants. But elderberries.
But are those bees? Are those bees I'm looking at?
That's a frame of my honeybees. So I have 7 hives over on Perry, and I have 3 hives here at St. Sabina. And because the distance is far enough, the honey tastes different at each place. Because St. Sabina has more floral, and from the trees, the flowers from the trees and people's gardens, the honey from there tastes more floral. And over by my farm, I have the giant elderberry, I have mulberry, I have aronberry, I have all these berry trees. So the honey at my place will have more of a fruit flavor. And so when you get those buckwheat honeys and that clover honey is just what they now call wildflower honey. It's the bees are out in the middle of the field, and whatever they get is what they got.
So which is the best honey?
Oh, the best honey, I would say last year's honey is the best honey. Because once the honey is gone, it's gone. So it's like the memory of childhood. But when you have honey that is directly from your beekeeper, and you know your beekeeper, you know where they had their bees, and you know they take care of their animals, it tastes of spring, it tastes of summer. One year out at Carmel, they have a lot of the founder of Carmel Montessori. When she first got to America from Ireland, she didn't know that creeping Charlie, which is in the mint family, was a weed. And so they had grass and they had a farm, and she was like, I want some of Charlie. And now the whole 2 acres where they have their little farm school is inundated with creeping Charlie. But creeping Charlie is in the mint family. So one year, probably about 2018, when we collected the honey, all the honey, it was a great bloom for creeping Charlie. All the honey tasted like mint. And everybody was like, oh, this is amazing honey. And they say, I can't wait till next year. And I said, I'm sorry. Next year, it'll be different flowers. It'll be a different flavor. There'll even be different bees. The only bee that overwinters is the queen. And she can live anywhere from 3 to 5 years. But generally at about 3 years, the bees replace the queen. So I would not say that I prefer a particular type of honey.
So how do you make honey?
So I just like I make eggs, I employ some very hardworking women. In the beehive, only the women are doing any work. The boys, they have one job. Their job is to impregnate an unfertilized queen. They will not fertilize the queens that are in their hives. So the boys will come into the hive. The male bees are called drones. The drones will come into the hive, and they will just bump up. They'll just keep bumping some of the worker bees until one of them feeds them. The boys are that lazy. They won't even feed themselves. They'll starve to death before they'll even get their own food. Now, come wintertime, it's sad, but the girls all get an urge to not feed the boys over the winter, and they kick them out of the hive. So when you start your hive in the spring, there are no boys in that hive. But the boys that the queen will lay, they'll be unfertilized eggs. They will turn into drones, and then those drones will go out, and somehow using the magnetosphere, they figure out where they're all supposed to hang out, and they'll all stay there waiting for a princess to come past. And if the princess comes past, They'll fly up, catch her, do the deed, and then they die. So the
That
boys
is
are
amazing.
yes,
That is
but
absolutely amazing.
the girls do all the work. They go out, they collect the nectar, they collect the pollen, they come back, they give the nectar. They don't put it in their stomach like there's some people that are like, oh, honey is bee vomit. They have a special pocket in their body. And one little kid told me it's like a kangaroo pouch. And I was like, exactly, like a kangaroo pouch. But so that pouch is where they hold the nectar. And then when they get back, they give that nectar to one of the bees that are inside the hive. The younger bees are the house bees. And the house bees take that nectar and they go and they put it in a cell. While they're putting it in the cell, that collector bee goes out. They're not collector bees. I'll remember the name in a moment. That bee goes out and she gets more nectar or more pollen. They also collect pine sap and sap from other trees, and they make a glue out of that. And that glue is on the edge of all the frames, and it kind of holds the frames together, and it insulates the hive from the cold. And human beings eat that. It's called propolis. And so we eat propolis because it's got all the natural goodness from the trees. And so it's a health supplement, and it is also a health supplement for the bees. So the bees use it. It's antibacterial. Honey is the only food that never spoils when properly stored. They've gone into pyramids in Africa and gotten honey, and it'll be crystallized. When your honey crystallizes, that's not a bad thing. If you have honey sit down on the counter and it never ever crystallizes, it's not honey. Honey is the second most adulterated food behind virgin olive oil. There's no virgin in olive oil, and it's often have other things than olives in there. So you have to be careful with those two items, the olive oil and the honey.
Okay, and so the boys don't work. Maybe that's where my grandfather got that concept, because he worked me like a Hebrew slave. We'll be back with more right after this.
No straw in your cement. I know how it is.
Peace and love. I'm Michelle Renee, host of Education Nation, live on the Female Solution Global Network every second and fourth Sunday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. The intention of Education Nation is to raise awareness about the literacy crisis and to offer information to combat the problem. The goal is to awaken an army of reading coaches and mentors. You will experience guests who are doing their part in the community to ensure youth in their circles are reading and thinking critically. I look forward to serving you in this capacity. Literacy is freedom, and Education Nation will offer information and strategies to help ensure our young people stay free.
Absolutely.
All right, we're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and I'm interviewing Steve Archer II, executive director of the Saint Sabina Chicken Palace, and that's located at 6840 South Racine. Thank you so much for being on the case. So, tell me something. Why do the eggs taste differently? And some people may be afraid of eating a brown egg or a green egg, and are there any black eggs?
There are not black. Oh my goodness. There's so many good questions. There are no black eggs, but there are black chickens. There are these chickens that have black skin, bones, and feathers. One of the breeds is called Silky, and the other one is a Chinese breed whose name I can't remember. So they have that pigment disorder. The Silkies instead of having the 3 toes and the one in the back like normal chickens, actually have 5 toes. So they're kind of cool. Unfortunately, they don't survive Chicago winters. As much as you like them, my wife will not let me bring chickens in the house to overwinter. All right, so no black eggs. They're chocolate eggs. They're really dark brown in that first row, all the way in the back. I only have one bird that still lays chocolate eggs, but maybe one of these baby birds will be a chocolate egg layer since we hatched a bunch of chocolate eggs. Now, the reason that fresh eggs taste better, the eggs from your backyard chicken taste better, is because of capitalism. And it's kind of funky, but when those big, massive companies and organizations that raise a lot of chickens, they have 10,000 chickens or 100,000 chickens in the warehouse, and there's an option for them to go outside, and if the chickens make it outside, then they're called outside birds. But when they collect all those eggs, they have 30 days to get those eggs from the farm to the guy who cleans and washes and puts the eggs in the carton. That guy has an additional 30 days to get it to the warehouse where these superstores are going to sell them. So before you ever buy those fresh eggs in the market, they may already be 90 days old, right?
Oh, wow.
They can get them there faster. Now, eggs are porous, right? When we have our eggs, part of the color that's on the egg, why all these eggs aren't the same color, is because eggs really only have 3 colors: brown, white, and blue. Those are the only 3 colors. Everything else is shading, and that shading comes from the mama, right? So she leaves what is called a bloom on the outside of the egg. And that bloom on the outside of the egg is like when a baby is born, right? They have that waxy coating on their bodies. And that waxy coating was protecting their skin from the amniotic fluid. The bloom on the eggs is protecting the inside of the egg from the environment. So it protects it from any bacteria getting in, and it also keeps it from letting too much air in or out. So when you have those eggs that are 90 days old, once they wash them, right, they've taken that protective bloom off, and then they put them in refrigeration to keep any bacteria from growing on them. But refrigeration actually sucks moisture out. And since the bloom is no longer there to protect them, they're losing moisture. And when they lose that moisture, they're losing the nutrients that our bodies can taste, right? Our bodies can taste those nutrients. When something is healthy for us, they're like, these greens are good. These are the best greens I ever had, because you just got them out the garden. But when you're getting them out the store, they've lost some of the nutrient density through evaporation. So that's why backyard eggs taste better. Now, the people who are afraid of eating the backyard eggs, it's propaganda, right? So if you think that your front yard should look like a golf course, that's not the reason why landowners in America had front and backyards. It was to grow food, right? During World War II, they had the victory gardens. 20% of all the food eaten in America during that time was grown in somebody's backyard. It was grown in the victory garden. And I believe right now we're at less than 5% of people actually grow and produce their own food. Less, which is significantly less than 20% of the entire country. So
can eggs spoil?
So yes. All right. So if your eggs are unwashed, taken directly from the chicken and unwashed, they can sit on your counter. They say 2 weeks. It's closer to a month, as long as they're unwashed. Our eggs are gently washed, right? We use a vinegar solution and extremely hot water, and we make sure that there's no debris on the chickens. I have yet to meet the chicken tender, a farmer who has taught their chicken to wipe their feet before they jump in to lay the egg. So as the chickens are walking around outside, they could potentially pick up bacteria. However, the bloom's job is to protect the egg on the inside from the bacteria. So the egg on the inside is safe, but It's when people from the city who don't know how that they need to wash their eggs, if you gave them unwashed eggs, they might not wash the outside of the egg, and they could potentially get bacteria in there, and then they could potentially leave those eggs sitting for 3 to 4 hours. So it's all about potential. But if you crack the egg and ate that egg immediately, if it was unwashed, you would not get sick. But it's the time frame. The bacteria has to have enough time to grow in a cracked egg. So these eggs, when you get them from us, you can leave them on your counter for 2 weeks. If you don't want any, if you know you're going to use them within that time, and you don't want to lose any of the nutrients or flavor due to the evaporation that occurs from refrigeration, right? Because refrigeration happens by taking the moisture out the air. They'll sit there for 2 weeks. Now, if you just took my eggs and you put them in the refrigerator, you still get 90 days, right? So the 90 days that it takes for commercial egg producers to get it to the grocery store and on the market is the same 90 days. But if you eat it in the first 2 weeks, then you'll taste the difference. Now, if you bake, I would say that my mom, the first time I made my grandma my great grandma Ella's sweet potato pie recipe, and I used the eggs from our backyard hens, my mom and my Aunt Jean were like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "I didn't do anything." They're like, "No, you did something. Something's different." And I say, "Well, I used the fresh eggs from my garden. I used the sweet potatoes that I grew and I cured. I don't make butter, but I bought the organic butter. I used as much natural organic ingredients as possible, and you can taste the difference."
Absolutely. So when I wash my eggs, because
Yes.
that's what I was taught, but you said
Yes.
vinegar. Why should I? What's
Okay,
the
so
formula for that?
Okay, so it's about a gallon of hot water and about a tablespoon of vinegar. Vinegar, there are a couple of different items that you can use that are going to be mostly organic and not damage your product, right? Not damage the thing that you want. So I add vinegar because the acidity level in the vinegar can basically, kill bacteria. So the eggs are not sitting in the vinegar for very long, literally less than a minute. I put 6 to a dozen eggs in at a time. I washed them with my brush. Do I have my brush in here? No, of course I don't have my brush in here. I washed them with a little bristle brush, right? And you wash both sides of it, and then you place it to dry. Wash both sides of it, you place it to dry. And so the vinegar is 1 tablespoon to a gallon of hot water, and the water should be about 140 degrees. I think it might be 144, but there's a number, and once you set your water tank to that number, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Now you're having a Tinder classroom.
All right. So
what's that about?
So on the 24th, Friday the 24th, we did classes over January, February, and March. We did classes basically teaching people how to prepare their garden, to grow things, to grow trees and house plants. So we want people to understand that some of your house plants are actually edible. Some of your garden plants, like hostas, are actually edible, right? So people don't know that hostas are edible, and they're always splitting them and putting them out on the curb and all the rest. But you can eat hostas. Asparagus looks like a giant fern. So our class, it should have been wannabe, WANNA, but the person that was working on it corrected my spelling. So you want to be a chicken tender, like tending the chicken, to be the shepherd. So we want to tell people the basic information about chicken breeds, like the really cool bird that I was telling you about, the silky, that it doesn't have feathers. Its feathers feels like silky hair, right? And it's got 5 toes instead of 4 toes, and its skin and its bones are black. Well, they don't survive Chicago winters, so that would not be a good chicken breed to get. So where do you get your chickens from? right? You can literally order baby chicks online. But when you order baby chicks online, you generally order 10 at a time, because when those chicks get there, after going through the stress of being in the mail and on the back of that truck, 2 or 3 of them are going to die. All right. And then 2 or 3 of them are going to die for what seems to be no reason at all that you can figure out. And it's really sad. And by the time it's done, you should have about 60% of the birds that you paid for. And then if you don't have the proper environment, so the class is going to talk about that. What does it take to make sure that in 4 months you have birds that are going to be producing eggs? What are the requirements for food? What are the requirements for water? What things can you do? So in that picture on our class that's coming up, you can see, I think that's Aziz's hand. That don't necessarily look like my fingers, but we're holding up a piece of watermelon. Chickens love watermelon more than Southsiders. So when you're done with your chicken, they will eat it till the rind is almost see-through. And it's basically 90% water. So you're just feeding your chickens water, but the micronutrients from a good organic watermelon will end up in your hens, and then it'll end up in your eggs. And while it doesn't, there's nothing that changes the flavor of the eggs to make them taste like garlic or anything like that. It does make your eggs have more nutrient density. And so you want all of those so that you can be healthier.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of On the Case right after this.
Thank you.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Soot. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
Okay, we're back. I'm Chinta Strausberg, producer and host of On the Case, and my guest is Steve Archer, and he is executive director of the St. Sabina Chicken Palace, and that's located at 7840 South Racine. Now, this class that you're holding on the 24th, who can come, and what are the prerequisites for attending?
So the prerequisite is curiosity. So right, you just have to be curious about whether or not you want chickens. And we have worked with St. Sabina Academy, and the other one is Spark Montessori I believe it's on the north side. It's just a little bit west of Loyola, and their students have been raising some chickens for us. And so I want to share with you. I was talking about the chicken. So the prerequisite is curiosity. Just if you call the number on there, that's my number. I can send you the link to sign up. We're going to try to limit the class to about 15 people, so that because of the space that we're using. And then anybody else will do another class on May 22nd. on May 22nd, the next Friday. So I want to show you guys, everybody who's watching. These are a couple of our little baby chicks, all right? So not one of the teachers at it's Cook Elementary down the way. We brought some chicks over in January for them to see, and they were surprised that the chicks were black. They say, "We want black chicks. We don't want them yellow chicks." All right, but if we look a little closer, while these two had the same daddy, they got different mamas. And so this one has brown feathers in her wings, and this one has all black except a little bit of white in the wing. Now, one of the other things, you might be able to see the feathers on her foot. So we know that her mommy, oh yes, she's not happy with us. We know that her mommy is my chicken named Lefty, who when she was a baby chick, she only had feathers on her left foot, and she's very likely a Moran. And so she's the one that got us our dark brown eggs that you might have seen. Now this one, mother is different. I have a couple of chickens that, yes, these little ones can fly. I see a question from John Alexander. So these little ones can fly a little bit. They just have their feathers now, but they have mostly down. So they can only get enough. They can only get enough flight to get a couple inches off the ground, and they like to roost. I see you. So when you are feeding them, one of the things you want to do is have the same call or behavior when you feed them, so that they will know it's you. But they can hear my car coming. They see my car and they come running from all over the place. And I don't, if I wait too long in the car, they'll come and start tapping on the door. They'll jump up on stuff and they'll look at me and they'll turn their head to the side to look at me like, won't you hurry up? So I cannot be on the phone and pull up, and they will not wait. They don't have any patience for me.
They're like your babies.
Yeah, chickens also have an ability, like some of the other birds. They can, when you move them, their head stays focused on whatever they're focused on. I can get her to pay attention. It's hard to do it with the camera.
And John Alexander is asking, hi, John. Glad you tuned in to On the Case. And he's asking, how big do they get?
Okay, so these are just the baby chicks. So it depends, right? It unfortunately, that's the question that you get a lot of times in when you talk to a farmer and a beekeeper. The answer is going to change. Which guy? This is how it says. The answer is going to change with who you talk to. Mm-hmm. So the best answer is, very welcome. The best answer is that there's really several different breeds of chickens, right? There is a giant chicken that gets like humongous. Most people don't play with those breeds, not because they're dangerous or anything like that, but it's sort of like having a Great Dane, right? They have a lot of health issues. They've been bred to be bigger by some crazy person years and years ago. Most of the time, though, you get what's called a bantam chicken, and those generally weigh between, a little less than a pound to about 1.5 pounds. Those are I'll answer that question in just a second. So those chickens are really tiny. They don't get very big, and they're very cute, and they're sort of like racing pigeons. People raise them for them to be pets. Often they're very, they become attached to human beings easily.
Right. So Vieta Robinson, she wants to know, where do you keep them in the wintertime? That's a good question, Vieta.
Yes. So the egg layers are a little bigger than the bantams, right? So they get to be about 3 to 5 pounds, depending on how much they eat. You don't want your egg layers to be overweight. If they become overweight because they've ate too many snacks or things like that, it actually interferes with the egg production. And the biggest chickens that you'll get can be 10 pounds. And those are the meat birds. So when you get that big old drumstick, those aren't from egg layers. Egg layers got little teeny tiny legs, right? And the meat birds have big legs. So when you hear about the Chinese eating chicken feet, it's from meat birds. It's not from the little ones. Now, where do you keep them in the winter? Because I'm a teacher and an instructor and a Montessorian, I often ask people when they ask me this question, I ask them to think for a moment. Where do the pigeons go in the winter?
It's a good question.
All right. So the pigeons don't go anywhere in the winter. We see them out when it's cold, right? When it's below zero, they all seem to disappear. Chickens are birds, and they have a higher body temperature than us. So there are not as many zoonotic diseases, which is why they get upset about bird flu. Zoonotic disease, meaning it jumps from humans to animals, from animals to humans. Swine flu, bird flu, maybe COVID, depending on who you talk to. So in the wintertime, I keep them in their coop. They don't need a special place. They just need the ability to come in out the cold, right? So when you see the chicken coop, it's hard, unless we have one of the pictures where you can see it from the side. Behind that front part is a 6 by 8 foot section, and that big old chicken butt that you see there, those are Thelma and Louise. There are two meat birds, and they're really large. If you get a chance to come out, you can meet Thelma and Louise. But behind there is a section where it's closed off on the side, so there's no wind that comes in. I started raising chickens in 2008, maybe 2010. I know it was after the twins were born, and after I had a vehicle accident, and as a veteran, I got injured, and the VA, at the psychiatrist that I was speaking to, I was having difficulty because I was non-mobile. I was non-weight bearing on both legs. My pelvis was shattered, acetabular fracture on the left femur. That's the top of your femur broken, and then a clean break on my right side. So all of a sudden, I went from being the Marine that was like, you put it in front of me, I was working, I was busy, to somebody that was bound in the bed, and I was going crazy. And so the doctor said, I felt that I was going crazy. That's not the words the doctor used. And I told him, I said, I feel like I'm going crazy. He said, you need to take care of something while you're in recovery. And we got chickens, and the kids, we got ducks and chickens, and the kids Simon named one of the ducks Bat Ducky, and he wanted to name the chickens Bat Chickens. He was a big fan of Batman, so everything had to be bat themed. And that was when we first got chickens. And the second oldest boy thought the chickens all hated him and were out to get him. He has a very active imagination. We didn't have any roosters at that time. Right. And as time has progressed, I've sought out mentors for beekeeping, for farming, for permaculture, for chicken tending, but for being a shepherd, because at one point this was all common knowledge, right? And I tell the young kids in the classroom sometimes, I say at St. Sabina, I remind them that sometimes people say that our ancestors were slaves and that our ancestors were forced to farm, and it's not true. What is true is that some people went to Africa and they started human trafficking, and they didn't want lazy people that didn't do anything. They wanted people with knowledge, and those people went to the Virgin Islands, St. Vincent, and they built buildings and houses. They built the White House. They came to the Americas and they did the farming. Absolutely. You can either be one or the other, right? You could either be the slave master or the farmer.
Absolutely. Right? So tell us how people can help St. Sabina keep this chicken farm, chicken palace. I'm sorry.
Yes. All right.
And how?
All right. So we did raise the money for the chicken palace. Now we have to do the second stage. And the second stage is we need to expand our chicken run. So we do composting on site because we want everybody to know the whole thing, all the history of knowledge that we've lost, like from growing okra to tomatoes. But our chickens are part of that. You need livestock, the honey, the bees, the chickens as part as part of how you make compost, right?
We're almost out of time. So how do we give?
Yes. So sorry. So we have a link up here. You can scrolling across the bottom of the screen is admin@sabinagardens.org. And that is a way that you can Zelle money directly to our account. And that money is going to go for us building raised bed gardens, educating people, keeping our chickens fed. They're fed on organic food, no corn, no soy during the summertime. During the wintertime, they get a little corn. So admin@sabina.gardens.org, or if you follow that link to Zeffy, Zeffy, that one is a way that you can donate monthly or yearly so that you can help support our hens and make sure that they get fed.
And we are out of town, out of time. Thank you so much, Steve Archer. He's executive director of the St. Sabina Chicken Palace at 7840 South Racine. Thank you for being on the case.
Thank you so much for allowing me in your space.
You're welcome. More than welcome.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiabonga. Senegal, jaref. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.